Alright, there's no secret that Israel Adesanya has become hated by UFC fans, and it's really, really interesting how the switch up it wasn't like he did one thing and all of a sudden all of these fans hated him. It was more of a gradual thing. The more that Israel Adesanya seemed to be in the media, the more fans kind of turned against him. And today I wanted to react to a video by ITP MMA Live. It's a fantastic channel if you don't know about it. The link will be in the pinned comment description down below if you guys would like to see either of that. We're going to react to this video in just a second. Before we do that, I do want to say hello everybody and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Kyle. I am your guy with too many YouTube channels. Let's watch this video together. Why Israel Adesanya became hated by UFC fans.
Alright, so Israel Adesanya may be the weirdest person to hold a UFC championship that we've ever seen, because despite being an undeniably great fighter who was propped up to be the next big superstar by the...
And it's sometimes I forget about that too, that he was supposed to be like the face of the UFC. And you know what? There's argument to say that he was the face of the UFC for a little while, and he was a champion for a very, very long time, too.
UFC, Izzy has done a spectacular job at turning fans off from him as of late. Whether it be from his boring performances while he was champion, his potential steroid use, his painfully cringe trash talk, and even his suspected attraction to dogs.
That's the biggest one.
Izzy has seemingly lost more fans than he's gained in recent years. Let's start off with how Izzy is seen by many fans to be a boring fighter. After officially switching over to MMA, after an extremely successful run in Glory Kickboxing, Izzy speed ran his way up the UFC rankings with relatively entertaining fights where he...
And it's weird that he kind of had this switch up over here because he was so exciting on the come up. There's a reason why there's a big meme right now just saying like, hey, contender Izzy. That's why I actually was leaning towards Israel Adesanya beating Dricus du Plessis, is because I was like, well, contender Izzy's back, and look what happens when contender Izzy's here. But I don't know why he like switched up the way he fights so much. Maybe just like to play it safe and not lose the belt. I don't know.
He ultimately knocked out Robert Whittaker to win the middleweight title. However, Izzy immediately followed up winning the belt by having one of the most egregiously boring and lackluster title fights in UFC history against Yoel Romero. I mean, even to this day, if you look up worst UFC title fight, many fans online will be quick to mention this fight as one of, if not the worst matchups ever.
And he's also had a couple stinkers other than just that, and that was like one of the most boring fights anybody has ever seen.
Both commentators and fans, including myself, watched confused and frustrated at how tentative the fight was, where the only brief moments of action were Yoel charging at Izzy, who backed away and leg kicked the whole night.
But I don't know, like, it's kind of, I'm conflicted on how I feel about that, because Adesanya came with a boring approach, but at the end of the day, he did what he needed to do to win the fight, and it's also Yoel Romero's fault for also being tentative in that fight.
The irony of this fight is that after stopping Rob to win the belt, Izzy was being heralded by Dana White as the next big international superstar, and if you look back at Izzy's fights prior to winning the title, he had some really fun performances. His TKO over Rob Wilkinson was really impressive, he looked great when he finished Derek Brunson in the first round, and his fight against Kelvin Gastelum is genuinely one of the best fights ever, so...
Yeah, and honestly, like, saying this and saying, like, these were great performances and these were great fights, that's an understatement. They were phenomenal. They were straight up phenomenal.
To have his first title defense be such a snoozer was a pretty massive disappointment. Anyways, Izzy's other noteworthy boring title fights include his rematch with Marvin Vettori, which although wasn't terrible, I definitely wouldn't say it was very exciting to watch by any means. Izzy fought Marvin right after he was beaten by Jan Blachowicz in his first and only light heavyweight title shot, and after his loss to Jan, I definitely feel like this is when Izzy started to take a much more conservative approach to his fighting style.
That's an interesting take. I'd have to really think about that, and I'm sure that he's going to walk through it right now. But I actually, for the majority of Israel Adesanya's fights, don't get me wrong, we had fights like the Yoel Romero fight. We've had other fights that have been just straight up, like Israel Adesanya dancing around and leg kicking. I have enjoyed a lot from what I have seen from Israel Adesanya. The problem is when Adesanya, and it's the same problem that Sean Strickland does, where it's like, I'm going to go to war, you're going to see something that you've never seen before, and then he comes in and just starts leg kicking and moving. That's my issue with his fight style.
UFC 276, Israel fought Jared Cannonier, and outside of his fight with Yoel, this is for sure one of the performances that really made fans aggravated at Izzy's conservative backpedaling style. I think this fight was particularly frustrating because although he was a noticeably better striker than Jared, and instead of actually trying to push the pace a little bit, Izzy just backpedaled and point fought the entire 5 rounds.
But that's the thing. I don't see a problem with that. That's a safe way to fight Jared Cannonier. Why not take out his leg? We just saw in Jared Cannonier's recent fight against Kyle Braujo that game plan works against Jared Cannonier. It's understandable. But Israel Adesanya talks and talks and talks about how the fans are never going to see anything that they have ever seen before, and he's going to go in there and just go to war and kill this guy. Like, That's the issue that I have with his boring style.
Now, you might be saying that not all of Izzy's title fights have been boring, which is true. I mean, his fight against Paulo Costa was pretty solid, even though admittedly Paulo forgot how to fight that night and let Izzy beat him up and finish him. His rematch against Robert Whittaker at UFC 271
still broke my heart.
Definitely wasn't bad, but again, I really think that Izzy's ultra-conservative fighting style that he adopted after losing to Bourquechop really held him back from making the fight more entertaining. And even taking a look at his most recent fight where he lost to Sean Strickland, I thought the fight was really interesting to watch, but it wasn't because of Izzy, it was more so because of how Sean bullied him that evening.
Yeah.
Because even though Sean was walking him down and disrespecting everything about Izzy's defense, Izzy still insisted on trying to make his backpedaling and leg kicks work, and
I wonder why he was doing that. I wish I could tell you. I really don't know. Because he has lost a couple times now fighting this way. Maybe it's not the safest way? I don't know.
Not gonna lie, in hindsight, I'm pretty happy to see Izzy's new approach to fighting get dismantled because maybe in future fights he'll come in with a new game plan that isn't just move backward and kick the legs. Honestly, the only title defense from Izzy that I would say is an actual banger is when he lost to Alex Pereira at UFC 281. And I would really argue that the only reason that this fight was a banger is because Alex is literally incapable of being in a boring fight and actually makes people fight him, so the fact that this fight was as entertaining as it was is a byproduct of Alex's fighting style, not—
Yeah, it all depends on who Israel Adesanya is fighting. It's not necessarily about Israel Adesanya, unless Israel Adesanya is a contender.
So much Israel's. And sure, their rematch where Izzy knocked out Alex to reclaim the title was great to watch too, but again, I would say that this is because Alex is more than willing to take chances and put himself at risk in order to make fights fun to watch regardless of outcome.
Oh yeah.
So let's do some math here. Out of Izzy's 7 middleweight title defenses, in my opinion, Israel just has one true banger against Alex where he lost.
Yeah, I might have to agree with that one. The Alex Pereira fight was good. Banger for sure. I mean, not that Kelvin Gastelum one obviously doesn't count, but for just straight up title defenses, yeah, like I might have to agree with that one.
And his fights against Paulo, Rob, and Sean weren't bad by any means, but I wouldn't have any of them in my top title defenses for the years that they took place in.
Oh yeah, like the Paulo Costa fight was good, and the Robert Whittaker rematch was good. I enjoyed watching that as more of like an MMA fan in general. I understand why people didn't really like that.
Point here being, although I appreciate Israel's fight IQ and his skills, as a champion, he didn't really give fans much to be excited for whenever he stepped in to defend his belt. As a champion, the only time where we saw him truly lay it on the line was against Alex Pereira, where he ultimately got TKO'd.
Yeah, that's true. And he also did show it in the Dricus du Plessis fight, and I think that this video, if I'm not mistaken, this video was made, 13 days ago. That was before the Dricus du Plessis fight. So he was a little bit more aggressive in there, but you could even argue, too, that's because Dricus just fights the way that Dricus does. He didn't let Israel Adesanya just dance around, so we don't really know.
Even when he was getting bullied pillar to post by Sean Strickland, and when Sean was literally screaming in his face, Izzy still backed up and tried to point fight him, which is baffling to me. I've seen people online say that Izzy is a much more entertaining fighter when he's not the champion versus—
Now, let me read this. That's because Challenger Izzy is one of the most exciting fighters on the roster. Champion Izzy had some great defenses, but also several circle leg kick defenses. He is the only modern UFC champ to have had people in the live attendance begin to walk out of the stadium prior to a main event title bout ending during the Cannoneer defense. I didn't know that happened. That's actually hilarious if that's the case. Izzy doesn't owe anyone anything. He can choose to circle leg kick. Those people can choose to literally walk out of the snooze fest they paid top dollar for. It's Challenger Izzy time now, though, and seeing him reclaim the title a third time would be amazing. To my knowledge, only John has done that. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. It makes sense. Israel Adesanya can fight how he wants, and I don't think that we have a place to criticize how he wants. We can say it's boring, but he gets the job done, and a lot of people act like if they were in a fight, they would go in there and take every chance in the world and slug it out, but it's a lot easier said than done. There's a lot of UFC fans that have no idea what it's like to throw a punch or take a punch. It is much easier said than done, and I don't like dislike Adesanya's fight style for that reason. I find it actually fascinating the fact that he is able to have that aura in there, or at least he was able to have that aura in there, and circle leg kick to the point where people are so tentative and he can counter. I found that style beautiful. As I've said, the only problem is everything else and the lead up to the fight.
Is when he's the champion, and just taking a look at his career, I kind of think there's some truth to that. Anyways, I can talk a lot more on this subject, but just know that I understand where Izzy haters are coming from when they say he's a boring fighter.
And that's what I was saying too. Like, I understand that as well.
And moving on, I think interestingly enough, the thing that might have alienated Izzy from his fans the most is what I think I would call just a general sense of phoniness and lack of authenticity. And I kind of feel like this lack of authenticity has resulted in his long history of cringe one-liners and antics.
Yeah, that's my issue with him as well. That's where I've got, like, because Israel Adesanya, for him, it was so easy to be liked. All he had to do was keep existing, right? But that's like I said in the build up. Yeah, you guys, you're gonna see a performance you've never seen before.
I mean, from dyeing his hair pink, walking into press conferences with French tip nails, or the infamous frozen like Elsa line, I just get the feeling that Israel is always trying to force viral moments instead of just being a real person and being honest with who he is.
Yeah, like you said, like I can kick him in the face with painted nails, and like he thinks that's like a hard line. And I know a lot of people have also said something to the extent of like he's always acting as if he's like in an anime show where he sits down, he says this big thing and wants somebody to make a highlight of him. What's funny actually is I love now, and I'm not going to find one for the video, but I've been seeing some TikToks of like Adesanya or Usman being really tough, or some other fighters, but mostly Adesanya and Usman I've seen where they just like put on some cloud music like, oh, they thought we were going to edit him. It's just them looking like super tough for saying something like, I can beat him up with painted nails, stuff like that. It's so good.
For example, back when Izzy was living in China and making a name for himself as a kickboxer, he started referring to himself as Chinese.
Yeah, I'm gonna skip a little bit on that because he is still going, because that is definitely not YouTube friendly to talk about. And okay, opens up about John Rodriguez Duplessis. That's gonna be a little bit tough too. And nothing against the video. I suggest you guys go check it out. If you want to check out the whole video, it'll be in the pinned comment description down below. I'm just trying to be on YouTube's safe side over here.
With TMZ that he was supposedly some sort of Nigerian refugee, and says that he and his family were forced to flee his country in search of better opportunities.
Yep, and they're still on that now. Okay, let's keep going.
As I said, I'm half Nigerian, and then you moved to New Zealand. What was the reason why your parents decided to take you out of Nigeria and move you to another country?
I think it was initially better recognized tertiary education.
It's not like Izzy and his family were uprooted from their lives. They just decided to move on their own accord.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot, and I have seen that old clip of Adesanya saying that he didn't know how to bathe himself. I've seen those clips, and they're unfortunately seemingly accurate over here. Okay, now we got some Pereira stuff over here. Sorry about that, guys. I just want to I ask you guys not to assume anything about my own opinions here, but I just want to be completely safe for YouTube.
In his house washing him until the age of 8.
There you go.
I mean, compare this to Alex Pereira, who actually grew up in Brazil and overcame addiction before becoming a UFC world champion, and who now I would argue might be a more beloved fighter than Israel ever was.
Oh, argue? He absolutely 100% is. 100%. It's not even close. Alex Pereira is probably the face of the UFC right now.
And this isn't because Alex has a bigger personality or has more international appeal than Izzy. I mean, Alex doesn't even speak English, for God's sake. But fans continue to flock to Alex because in a sport full of antics and theatrics, Alex has seemingly stayed true to his actual humble beginnings.
And it's a really, really great thing when you are able to capture that without even speaking English. Honestly, he's a guy to look up to, man.
Compared to Izzy, Alex is a pretty stark contrast in the way he presents himself to the world, and it's clear that fans appreciate the genuine nature that he brings. And the ironic thing about this is...
And, like, this is what he's talking about, like, the fakeness of Israel Adesanya. Like, look at this. Hang on.
World, and it's clear that fans appreciate the genuine nature that he brings.
Look at the hate in his eyes, man. Look at, like, he can't stand that Alex Pereira is there.
And the ironic thing about this is, even though Izzy
can't handle it,
clearly puts in a lot of effort to get people talking about him by rehearsing his cringe one-liners that he thinks are way better than they actually are, and
I believe you frozen like Elsa,
portraying himself as someone that he's not, I think fans would respond to him a lot more positively if he cut out all the bullshit and just kept it real with us.
Yeah, like I said, it was so easy for him to be liked. It was so easy for him to be one of the biggest superstars of all time. And, like, obviously he did reach that superstar status, but all he had to do was just shut up. All he had to do was shut up and fight.
Alright, next thing I want to talk about is how the MMA guru made a really disturbing and eye-opening video on how Israel might be sexually attracted to dogs.
Now, this one is a little bit... You can't defend that one, but then again, give it a couple years, and then we're not going to be allowed to talk about this because we'll have to accept it, obviously.
And even though when I watched this video, I went into it as a skeptic, I couldn't help but be shocked with what I saw, and yeah, it definitely makes me look at Izzy a bit differently for sure.
You know what's funny is I meant the video. What's funny is I wasn't shocked when I saw this. I wasn't even skeptical clicking on the Guru's video.
First, Guru shows a video that Izzy himself uploaded where he plays with his dog's dick. And yeah, okay, hard stop. This is weird as hell. I have a dog. I love my dog. But at no point have I ever felt compelled to play around with his private parts.
Nobody has. No normal person does. That's crazy. And I can't believe that he uploaded this himself and, like, thought that was okay. It's crazy. Like, I have no explanation for it. That's assault. It's assault. I would never in a million years Any normal person would never in a million years think about doing that to an animal, let alone their own animal.
And the fact that Izzy thought it would be a good idea to not only record himself
Yeah.
doing it, but to post it online is not just bizarre, but also pretty gross.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what was he thinking, man?
Guru then shows there's proof of Israel following Twitter accounts that are based around dog fetish adult content.
Oh, puppy girl Jenna. I actually went and checked up on that one myself. That's crazy. That's crazy. And by that, I mean, like, I checked to go see if Israel Adesanya was following, not check out the page. Just need to clarify that right there. But it's kind of like what I was just saying with the dog video that he uploaded. You would think that he would like have like an alternate account for stuff like this, but he's just completely open about it. And I don't know if I would imagine he's going to show the clip like, shout out to the puppy.
This screenshot is from a Twitter account of a girl who likes to pretend like she's a dog, and you can clearly see in the bio she's an OnlyFans content creator, and you can also clearly see that Israel was following her Twitter page. Now, this obviously begs the question if Izzy is subscribed to her OnlyFans page, where she gets into who knows what over
Hang on.
there.
You know what I just realized? That page has over 100,000 followers. This world, man. This world is sliding downhill faster than ever.
Also important to note here that when MMA Guru made this video in September 2023, he confirmed that Israel was still following this girl's Twitter account, and I just checked on my own Twitter, and now Israel is no longer following them.
Oh, the guru bullied him into making a separate account, it looks like. I don't want him to look at that, man.
Looks like somebody got exposed. And finally, Guru shows a crazy video of Israel appearing on the Breakfast Club radio show, and when asked by Charlemagne if he's the type of fighter to not have sex before fights, Izzy has the following to say.
What about fucking? Does that affect you?
Never, dude. Nah, man. That's a myth.
Okay.
Facts. I made records this week. I'll just leave it at that. Fight week.
Hang on.
Fight game,
Wait for it.
Cage, I was making records. Shout out to the puppy.
And this is where I'm sitting back, and like, we all know he's a weird guy. We all know he's messed up, right? But what I don't get is why he's just so open about this stuff. Why would you say that on a podcast? That's what I can't make sense of.
The puppy.
Whoa, what kind of code word was
I like it like right away. The puppy.
going on in the bedroom?
Shout out to her, whoever that is. At least you got a nickname, Ma.
I know.
All right.
Okay,
Shout
not
out to
even
the
a
puppy.
Andrew knows what's up.
Shout out to the puppy, he said. Shout out to the puppy? Like, why would he say that? Why did he even think that would be a good idea?
That's exactly what I'm saying, man. I don't get it. All he had to do to be loved by the entire world was shut up. And I don't get it. Like, I get people making mistakes. I understand that. But to say, like, shout out to the puppy when there's so much controversy around you being attracted to dogs, why would you even say that online? I don't get it.
This is such a weird thing for Israel to say, especially on a nationally broadcasted radio show, and I can't wrap my head around what compelled him to say that on
Exactly.
air. Like, was this just a really bad joke, or could this have been a Freudian slip where he accidentally said the quiet part out loud? Look, man, I'm not sure what to make of this whole doggy bender situation, but this Guru video definitely makes me raise my eyebrows a little bit.
And you know what I love too is the guru was probably actually the reason why he was so messed up and like a little bit like I understand in hindsight it's easy to look back at Sean Strickland and why Sean Strickland would beat him, but I like to think that the guru played a little bit of a big part in Israel Adesanya being like really nervous for that fight.
I mean, all three of these instances are really bizarre in and of itself, but this guy Israel really does seem to be leaving a trail of evidence that might indicate he could be into dogs. Even when it comes to his UFC appearances, Izzy has pantomimed walking into the octagon like
I don't think I've noticed that. I don't think, and what's the one on the left doing? Come on, man. I don't think I've noticed that. And now that I'm actually even thinking about it, something that I never really put together either is he humped Costa. He said something like, I'm the big dog. Wow, dude. Wow. I don't think I've ever seen this before. I mean, I must have seen it because I've watched all of Israel Adesanya's fights, but I never noticed it. That's crazy.
a dog and then pretends to pee on the cage as if he were a dog, and he's also worn a dog collar to a press conference. And of course,
and this is the one too where Israel Adesanya has his one-liners that he just thinks are going to go viral, but then everybody makes fun of him for it. I still say this whenever I'm with my friends to this day. And how long ago was that? Well over a year ago. The guy wears a dog collar. Like, this is what I don't get. He thinks it's a good idea to wear a dog collar to a press conference, and he doesn't think he's going to get made fun of. Because I'm a dog and I'm about to be unleashed. Like, I still say that with my friend group to this day, and I'm sure that other people do. Like, it was that cringy and that dumb.
UFC stuff isn't all that weird, I guess, but the fact that he has 3 more instances of playing with his own dog's private parts, following a dog fetish Twitter account, and referencing hooking up with his puppy on a radio show, I can't help but wonder about the things he might be getting into when no one's watching.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that the people who are familiar with these accusations
Yeah, and exactly, all the comments. Now, all Israel Adesanya is known as the dog bender.
have taken them to heart, because since the MMA guru made this video, it's pretty hard for me to click on any Israel Adesanya video or Reddit post and not see some sort of joke being made about him being attracted to dogs. I
Come on, though, dog bender is actually hilarious. Whoever started that, that's hilarious.
mean, to be fair, if there somehow becomes confirmation that Izzy actually does indulge in dog fetish activities, then
There's no way he doesn't. There's no way. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. No matter what comes out, I will forever, like, there's too much I've seen from him. He's too weird of a guy. Nothing can make me think otherwise of him.
I don't blame anybody who can no longer support the guy. But even with the evidence that we have seen on the matter, I don't think it's all that crazy for people to be a bit wary of what Izzy's getting into that we're not seeing.
Yeah,
Now, this wouldn't be-
that's exactly it. If he's willing to post this stuff online, if he is willingly himself posting what he is posting online, saying what he is saying, could you just imagine what's behind closed doors?
an Israel video if I didn't talk about his very mysterious come-and-go case of gyno. Gyno, which is an instance of enlarged nipple swelling, is often a telltale sign of steroid use, and there have been several instances of Izzy exhibiting gyno in his
Don't you mean the problem was he smoked a little too much weed?
fights. The first time fans noticed this on Izzy was during his fight against Paulo, where it's pretty noticeable that his right pec was swollen compared to his left.
And then all of a sudden, he had one of the greatest knockouts of his career.
This immediately raised questions amongst fans, fighters, and even coaches. For example, John Jones called out Izzy and mocked him for growing
Okay,
breasts.
come on, though. John Jones has no place to speak. No place to speak on PED usage. Nothing.
Clearly indicating that he thinks Izzy is taking steroids. And although John Jones really doesn't have any right to be pointing fingers at anybody when
There
it
you go. Like, I noticed we've been saying a few of the same things, but I promise you, I haven't watched this video. I really like ITP MMA, guys. You need to go check out the channel. Again, if you're not familiar with the channel, pin comment description down below. Really, really great content over there.
comes to taking steroids, he's definitely not the only person to claim Izzy's gyno is suspect. Prior to Izzy's fight against Alex Pereira, MMA coach Faraz Zahabi added to the pile by saying that Izzy's gyno is very suspicious and not
Interesting. I want to read this whole thing. In my mind, there's only one reason for this. There's only one group that has this problem. There's only one group. What other possibility could there be? People are putting pictures of him in the earlier years. He doesn't have it, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's got it. And for me, I have no explanation, guys. I have no idea. It's very suspicious to me. Now, I don't know what he means by there's only one group that has this problem. Does he mean the people that are using PEDs? Or if he means the group that are at Israel Adesanya's, City Kickboxing? I don't know if that's the case.
not so subtly accuses him of taking steroids by saying there's only one reason for this, obviously referring to steroid usage. And if Faraz Zahabi calling out a fighter for using steroids isn't enough for you, then I will give you steroid Jesus himself, more plates, more dates, saying that Izzy's sudden gyno is definitely suspicious.
Yeah, like that was bad. Like, look at the picture up at the top left, man. That's not weed.
And in response to being called out for the suspected gyno, Izzy famously came up with probably one of the worst explanations I've ever heard in my life. According to
my God.
Izzy, his right nipple became swollen from smoking too much weed.
What's funny is I didn't read that. I thought he was going to start talking about the Chadwick Boseman type thing. But you know what? I think everybody's looking into this a little bit too much. Look at Israel Adesanya and the type of person that he seems to be. Do you think that he would be so high and mighty to not use steroids? I think everybody's looking way too much into that. The eyeball test is enough sometimes, man. You don't need to get into, you don't need to get into the specifics of it.
Dude, I've been smoking weed regularly for a decade
Sorry, guys, had to do a little bit of a jump cut there. Had a little bit of an interruption for the recording, so we're going to continue right now.
and if excessive weed smoking caused enlarged nipples, then my nipples would be dragging on the ground whenever I walked at this point. Like, Izzy could have said nothing in response to the steroid accusations, and instead he says this. As you can probably imagine, fans far and wide ridiculed Izzy for trying to use this as an explanation for his gyno, and it definitely did more harm than good because
Yeah, because it followed him around forever, and now people are still saying, it's the weed. Look what I said when I first started mocking it.
MMA fans aren't idiots, and they immediately ruled this to be a lie, and it further strengthened suspicions that Israel is using steroids.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. I know what I think about this, but I'm definitely no expert on steroids and PEDs.
I'm not either, but again, I think people are looking too much into it.
So I'll let you guys decide for yourselves on if Izzy is on the sauce or not. I'll say this though, in the world of UFC, you'll lose some fans for being a blatant steroid user for sure, but you'll lose even more fans if you treat people like they're stupid and claim that your gyno is from smoking too much of the Jazz Cabbage.
Yeah, and a lot of MMA fans, like, there are, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of dumb MMA fans, but there's also a lot of really, really intelligent people on the side of MMA fans, and sometimes these fighters just insult your intelligence, and that's what I feel like Israel Adesanya, like, this is why I don't like John Jones, mate, because I constantly, like, whenever I watch something from John Jones, I feel like he's insulting our intelligence, just thinking we're stupid. And Israel Adesanya does that same thing sometimes.
And obviously, I don't expect him to admit that he's taking steroids or anything because he would be a fool if he did, but don't feed us these trash-ass lies and expect for us to eat it up. I don't know, I felt like he was insulting my intelligence a little bit when he
Dude, no way! I swear I have not watched this video.
with the weed excuse, and I'm sure some of you guys might feel the same way. Alright, so that's all the things that I wanted to talk about in this video. Obviously, for a video like this, I could have nitpicked a ton of small details about what Izzy said or done to try and paint him in an even worse light, but I've tried my best to keep things relatively objective. Like,
Yeah.
I could have brought up Izzy humping Paulo Costa doggy style after he TKO'd him and made
Why not? Why not bring it up, though? It's part of the doggy thing.
it seem like that crossed some sort of line, and maybe it did to some people, but I really don't think that's all that bad. Or I could have brought up how after he lost to Pereira, he tried to compare himself to Chadwick Boseman getting ridiculed by the media while he was battling cancer, but I'm willing to give Israel the benefit of the doubt there and just chalk that up to a really poor comparison he made up on the fly.
It's possible. It's possible, but I don't think so. I think that he's just trying to go viral again.
I can even talk about how Izzy definitely is not deserving of the immediate title shot that he's been given against DDP taking place this Saturday, but that's not Izzy's fault. The UFC would rather see him fight for the belt over Strickland.
That's
but
true.
Otherwise, I think when it comes to the things that I mentioned earlier, fans thinking Izzy's become a boring fighter, him trying to convince fans that his recurring gyno is from smoking weed, the doggy gate stuff, which is very weird, and his
Shout out to the puppy.
general phony vibe, all these things have kind of culminated together to make fans a bit put off by him. And
Yeah.
for what it's worth, I think that you can be a boring fighter in the UFC and still be incredibly popular. I mean,
It's true, and Israel Adesanya doesn't have to be boring, though. Like, man, he was contenders. He was a beast. He had some good performances. He had some bad performances. He wouldn't have went down like GSP. He would have went down like maybe even better if he just shut up.
my favorite fighter of all time is GSP, for God's sake, and his title defenses were far from electrifying by any means. But when it comes to Adesanya, I can understand why fans have cooled off from him a lot in recent years, because at least in my opinion, there's a little bit of disingenuousness to him. I don't know.
little bit.
Obviously, I think that he's a great fighter and all, but as a hardcore fan that's constantly consuming MMA content, it really seems like Israel's approval rating amongst the community has taken a downward turn in recent years. And seeing as nowadays, unless he's fighting Alex Pereira, his fights are average at best, mixed along with his questionable antics outside of the cage, I can see why Israel went from the next superstar to a fighter that many fans love to hate.
And now he's making excuses for the Dricus Duplessis loss, so he's still be doing the same thing. Like, we're gonna make a video on that, him talking about Alex Pereira. Like, hey, he noticed I was injured, guys, but he's trying to just like hint at it subtly, but just it didn't work at all.
Anyways, that's the video for today. Definitely let me know your thoughts on Israel Adesanya.
Yeah, it was a really, really good video, and it makes sense, man, why Israel Adesanya has been hated by so many fans nowadays. It's crazy. It's unfortunate, to be honest with you, because he had all of the potential in the world, but then again, is it even really unfortunate? Because I don't want to support somebody who does what he does to dogs. I don't think there's any excuse for that. Like, my dog is down here. I could never imagine even thinking about touching her inappropriately. That's disgusting, and it's honestly like on the same level as I view like if somebody were to touch a child inappropriately. It's just so innocent, so wrong, you know? It's crazy to me. And it's crazy to me that Israel Adesanya still has fans, to be honest with you, but I mean, not everybody even knows, like, people just watch him fight, right? There's always those people that exist, so it kind of makes sense, kind of doesn't. It's crazy that there's hardcore fans that still like Israel Adesanya. But anyways, I would love to know what you guys think about this whole topic down below. Guys, ITP MMA is a fantastic channel. I watch your content all the time. I really, really, really love it over there. So again, check it out in the pinned comment description down below. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to continue watching this channel, though, we have a video on screen right now. YouTube thinks you'll like this video the best when it comes to MMA content. And if you would like to check out one of our reaction videos from another channel, I am your guy with too many YouTube channels. You can check out that video at the bottom right here, guys. I would love to see you either in one of those videos. Take care, everybody.